This episode is brought to you by our partnership with Grand Canyon University. Welcome to the Ignite Project, a Polk County Public Schools podcast made for teachers by teachers. Teachers of all experience levels need each other's enthusiasm and passion to fuel an ongoing desire to do what it takes to meet the needs of our students. And that's what this podcast is all about. Be energized by their enthusiasm to ignite a love for teaching while they challenge others to join them in their work. Join us now.
Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us on the Ignite Project podcast. My name is Mallory Williamson, and I am the Teacher Engagement Analyst here with Polk County Public Schools. And today we have Andrea Peters in the house.
Hello.
She is the Senior Coordinator with Professional Development for Teacher Training. So we're so glad you could join us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with y'all.
You are a part of the Induction Program, correct?
Yes.
So we call it TIPS here, but what is the actual full name of that?
TIP stands for Teacher Induction Program Seminar.
Okay. So what I love about your role is that you get to meet pretty much any new teacher, new educator that comes through Polk County Public Schools, and they go through your program before they enter into the classroom, correct?
Yes, we have teachers with zero experience, career changers, up to I've had a teacher with 34 years experience, I think it was this year. So yes.
A little bit of everything. I love it. And I love the fact that I get to be the one that joins you today. I know it's a little bit different. You were a part of my beginning journey in teacher engagement. You were actually a part of my hiring process.
Yes.
So I love that we get to talk this today. And so our big focus today is supporting new teachers. We really want to dive into why is it important that we support new teachers and your journey that goes alongside of that. So prior to your present role in the district, you were an I3 mentor. So that's something that you were part of a really incredible program. So if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about that, what was it about? What it was its purpose?
I was thrilled and humbled to be an I3 mentor because I had the opportunity to work with teachers that had 0 to 2 years experience, and I got to be with them for 2 years.
Wow,
so
that's a long time. That's cool.
And part of that was, originally I think people saw the mentors as confidants for the new teachers, and it was more about a trust relationship, more of a marriage, a trust relationship with instructional support.
Yeah.
And so I got to journey along with many new teachers during my time as a mentor and just help them to grow their practice and work with effective coaching cycles around things that they wanted to improve upon. So there was ownership, and it just was a wonderful experience.
Which I really love the fact that you talk about there's ownership in that. So we often mislabel new teachers as anyone who's a first-year teacher, right? We say, okay, you've only had 1 year or less than a year of experience, you're a brand new teacher. After that, you're not really considered a new teacher anymore. So we kind of describe new teachers less than 5 years. So the fact that were you with the same person for 2 years?
Yes.
All for both 2 years. That's even more incredible because I think that you have an opportunity set aside from an academic coach, set aside from anybody else like an administrator or a team to collaborate with. I remember one of the I3 mentors got a chance to stop by my class with one of the new teachers, and it was a really cool opportunity just to have what you were saying, that relationship, that building of that foundation. And so what was the greatest part of that experience that you took away from that?
The training and the tools that we received were invaluable to where I am now in supporting new teachers, as well as now our coaches, our instructional coaches are utilizing those tools with the coaching cycles and helping to grow teacher practice through those same tools. So I think the training that I received and learning how to actively listen, question instead of putting in my 2 cents all the time.
Yeah.
And that was so valuable to me because it really helped me to listen to the new teachers that I was working with and what did they want? What did they need? And so I actually had, that was why I said it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I think that's a huge crucial part with new teachers coming in, especially you are in a present role of senior coordinator for these induction programs. And so tell us a little bit about what you do with that. So you're an I3 mentor. You were able to walk alongside these teachers for 2 years time period, give them coaching, and then now you're in this position. So what did you take from that role as a mentor that you now utilize as a senior coordinator?
Well, and COVID kind of put a damper on what I wanted to do, because originally when I began in this role, it was just I would do tips and they'd be out the door, and it was, I'm here to support you. If you need me, email me.
Yeah.
But coming from the mentoring role where I had an active part in helping grow their practice, that's what I want to start happening with tips.
Yeah.
I want to be able to follow and work with these teachers that are coming in. And through your department, that's, our partnership is very helpful in that, and allowing me to get to work with some of the teachers in the teacher seminars and things like that. So, that's what I'm working more towards, is getting out more with the new teachers so I can continue to support in that way, rather than just being, the tips lady.
The face that you see for a couple days and then you automatically leave. We at Teacher Engagement really appreciate you jumping in with us, because I think it's such a great collaboration. We have a new teacher Facebook group, and so they pretty much, it's a free-for-all, right? They ask any questions they need help for, and we see you pop in and answer those questions before we even sometimes get to it. So it's really awesome to see some of those characteristics of the mentorship now enter into the induction program. We were talking about this recently. We have some data that there's 190 teachers who are non-education majors, and 175 of those teachers left. And so we now are focused even more so on the fact that we need support, not only for new teachers, but teachers with zero background in education who are coming through this induction program and taking some of those characteristics and qualities from what you learned and being able to follow them is so crucial.
Yes.
And I'm going to spiral back to what you kind of mentioned earlier. We do make the mistake of assuming that we know exactly what new teachers need, right? We know, okay, we have a list that we need to cover, and then we're going to just let them go and say, okay, we covered those topics, they should be fine. But really, it depends on their circumstances, right?
Yes, it does. And with so many career changers coming in, as you mentioned that number, that statistic, and how many are leaving, I think they get overwhelmed with the amount of information that they receive.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is even the term pedagogy.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So I think it's important that we not only support them in the content and curriculum, but we support them in the pedagogy, and that will help them to have a better understanding to remain in the district, and the support from other teachers, from fellow teammates.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part that if we're able to say, if we do a couple of these things at a time or over a period of time, maybe that we can retain them for the following year. So is there anything that stands out to you when supporting new teachers, whether education majors or non-education, through your experience and your roles? Is there something that stands out? We're saying, if we can kind of hang on to these things, they're more likely to stay the following year?
I think having support.
Knowing
where to go for the answers, or knowing who to go to that they can count on. And it's not of, oh, just let me know when you need help, because we don't know what we need sometimes. Yeah. So sometimes it's just stopping by their door and saying, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
What do you need? So it's that connections, those relationships, that if we can develop those relationships and get true authenticity about knowing that they can trust and truly bare their heart and be transparent with what's going on, because so many times we're trying to keep our head above water that first year or two.
Yeah.
And so knowing who they can go to and having that support, I think, would help, just keep teachers in our district and not having to retrain people, in a situation where, you're in a classroom, you're a grade chair or you're a teammate, and you keep having to retrain because new people keep coming through the door. So if we can build those relationships, I think relationships are the key, even with our students. It's all about building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's something that, so teacher engagement this year is piloting the teacher engagement ambassadors. And we have done this transition from the open door policy. I love to kind of describe it as is come see me, like just what you said.
Yes.
My door is always open. You're more than welcome to. We want you to basically go find them, step into their comfort zone, reach out a hand to them, sit down with them and say, I'm here for such and such time. What can I help with, in this moment?
Yes.
And over time, you hope that builds that trust so that they understand that you're taking time out of your teaching day, you're sacrificing that time. So for some of our experienced teachers, is this something that you would recommend, advice that you would give to them if they're saying, I want to help, but I'm really busy. I don't necessarily know where to start. So how can our experienced teachers get involved in that?
I think just being there for the new teachers, and remembering that not all of them are coming from the same place.
Okay.
And the underlying pedagogy, the classroom management, the knowing procedures, knowing what an expectation is. And they get all that in tips, but it's a lot of information at once. And that's something that in the future, I hope we can spread out over time so they're not inundated. So right now, what we're doing in professional development is we have the PD on demand, which are 20-minute max.
Which is necessary for them to be short.
Yes, 20-minute maximum to just have it. Some of them are just a video to watch. Some of them are information to digest. What's nice about it is they can refer back to it at any point in time. It's still there for them. And yes, it's wonderful. They can get some points, but ultimately it's the information, and it's the basic information. We have everything from classroom management based on building relationships in your classroom, to expectations, to procedures, to securing students' attention.
Yeah.
And then we're also into topics of diversity and equity. Social and emotional learning aspects are on there as well. So it's not just for new teachers, it's for all of us to grow our practice. And we need to be lifelong learners, just like we want our kids to be. We need to be lifelong learners. So.
It's such a true statement. I think that even after my 10th year of teaching, I felt like there was always something more. Teaching is this huge, vast profession, and we can constantly grow. We're always trying to craft our, strengthen our craft, so to speak. And so I love that you put that out there, that experienced teachers can also grow from this as well as new teachers. If you're in your 5th year of teaching, you are a stronger, newer teacher still. You're just probably getting into that settling
and being more comfortable.
Being more comfortable
going into your room.
Yes. So with that being said, I love that these on-demand PDs you can play them probably in your classroom, correct, while you're doing grading papers. They're available for you. But one thing that I want to cover and talk about is that, so if we have these learning experiences where we have all year to grow, but in the beginning, this induction program just kind of throws it at you, and it's a very overwhelming experience. And I think that's with any job, right? You start a profession, you're eager to learn, but you just lack the experience, and over time that will come. But as you go through, I felt like I forgot a lot of stuff after those 2 days.
Oh, yes.
And if it wasn't for a colleague of mine kind of scaffolding it out for me, I would just be like a deer in the headlights. What you said, you're kind of in survival mode.
Yes.
So if you had any advice to give, whether it be a new teacher or an experienced teacher, beginning of the year that they could revisit, middle of the year they have some time to revisit, and end of the year, what would be those things that you would kind of spread out and scaffold for them to say, like, you need to take the time to revisit this?
Yes. So beginning of the year is just establishing those classroom procedures, expectations, And a key for the beginning of the year is building relationships.
Yes. Exclamation points, bold capital letters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then middle of the year, you're starting to feel, you're starting to feel a little more comfortable. Yeah. So that's when you can start to search out maybe a teammate and say, how can I add to this lesson I keep hearing this word, increase the rigor. So how do I do this?
Yeah.
So at that point, you're starting to get a little more comfortable because your procedures are in place. And so revisit that. Maybe look into some different ways to change up your lessons. And then ultimately at the end of the year, again, all caps, bolded letters, reflect. What worked, what didn't work, what do you want to tweak so it works even better next time. So the biggest key is to always look back and grow from where you were to where you're going.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that took time for me to develop. I wanted to be the best I could immediately. Yes. Sharing about my experience with others of I walked in and my co-teacher was a 14-year veteran. And so when you're on the team with these individuals, you look in their classroom and it's so intimidating because it looks like, they have these awards or they just look like they have it all perfect and put together and you immediately want to get on their level. And so I definitely love that your suggestion is to break it out and revisit and only focus on a little bit at a time.
Yes.
And even for veterans, one thing, after my 5th or 6th year, I realized I could only strengthen my craft by focusing on one area at a time and doing it well.
Well, and especially like focusing at the beginning of the year on the procedures and expectations, because if they're in place, then learning can take place. If they're not in place, true learning is not taking place.
Yeah.
So the more we can set that up in the beginning of the year and veteran teachers helping our new teachers to do that, because many of our career changers, they don't have that experience of the education classes that tell them how to do those things. And so our experienced teachers can, step in and help them. But also, you mentioned you had a mentor teacher who took you under wing.
Yes, I did.
I, too, had a mentor teacher 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And she wasn't paid separately. She was just my teammate, but she took me under her wing and just really helped me and was always available. And I will never forget that. So
experienced teachers, you hear that. Yes. You need to go find a new teacher and be a mentor to them. I think that's
and it helps grow your practice.
It does.
Yes.
I think it stretches you because you're practicing on how to communicate with them and how to stretch yourself with time management. I stepped into that role a couple of years prior, into entering teacher engagement. I really had to set aside time in my planner of I'm going to stop what I'm doing and go seek out, these 3 new teammates and make sure that they're on par with grading, or to make sure that, if I feel overwhelmed right now, they definitely probably feel overwhelmed, and I need to take the time to do that.
And also allowing them to see your practice. And I know that it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But somehow let them in. Let them see your practice. Let them see you in action. Let them have that opportunity, whether it be through video, whether you video yourself, or they have the opportunity to come into your classroom. But just affording them that opportunity to see good practice.
And even saying to new teachers, hey, you can be the one that reverses those roles and say, you film yourself and hand it to somebody where you feel like everybody in school talks about how amazing this teacher is. Hand it to them and say, hey, would you be willing to give me feedback on this particular video, this snippet?
Yeah, both ways.
Yeah, which I think when you seek out resources, it's easy for us to tell a new teacher, we have these resources available, go find a mentor, but we know that the feeling of being overwhelmed happens and hits them often. So how do we keep non-education majors, how do we keep younger teachers with lesser experience from quitting or from saying, I feel overwhelmed from the beginning of this induction period that we walked through until now, we're halfway through the year, I still feel like I haven't gotten my feet underneath me. What is something that you recommend or you feel like based on your experience that you would suggest so we can kind of help keep teachers in the classroom?
Our new teachers many times don't know what it is they need because they have so much coming at them from all sides. From the moment we walk through the door, it's get the content going.
Yeah.
So we need to afford them the time to get those procedures in place and expectations in place, because then the content will come. And it's reassuring them. I think our experienced teachers need to reassure them. And, in a faculty meeting, seek somebody out and sit by them. And it may be outside of your comfort zone, but think about them too. They're uncomfortable. And I think too, just again, I keep coming back to building relationships. The more that we have a relationship, the more trusting we are to share what is going on in our classroom. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to do this. Whereas when you don't have that relationship, you're not willing to share those things.
It's not going to come out. Right?
Exactly. So you're going to continue to flounder because you don't know where to turn to. You don't know, who to reach out to. So if we can form those relationships, our experienced teachers can form those relationships with our new teachers and really help them come on board. And I know our experienced teachers are overwhelmed as well.
Yes.
Because it's and especially this year with everything that has been thrown, our the new teacher or the new teacher and the experienced teacher's way. It's experienced teachers were all new teachers this year.
Right.
With everything
we keep
that
hearing that
yes.
over and over again. Yeah.
So I think letting a new teacher know that you were overwhelmed is transparent for that new teacher to be like, oh, okay, so I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, builds that relationship, which establishes trust, which establishes transparency to share things.
Right. It's one of those things where I wish we could have had an I3 mentor with every single new teacher, if that's possible. And I know with your I3 mentor, we've talked about the fact that you loved being able to follow somebody's journey all year long. And we wish you could do that now, but there are thousands now. You're responsible for thousands of people. And so that can get really difficult and challenging no matter how much you are, passionate about what you do or how much you try to reach out. And so I love the fact that you mentioned that is going to be a future goal of the program.
Yes.
To be able to connect. And
and I tell every teacher that comes through now, I'm here to serve. So if you need something, please reach out to me. I'm here to serve in any way I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll find you the answer. And many times that's turning them to you and towards teacher engagement.
That sounds very familiar because we have the same policy.
Yes, because, instead of trying to figure out who to go to, they can either come to you or come to me, and then we can direct them. And most times I'm directing them back to you.
But you're the first person that they often see when they come in.
Yes.
So, hopefully, post-COVID, we'll have back face-to-face, which makes it more personable of this is who I am. And so we have you available, and then teacher engagement is standing behind you strong, trying to continue and pursue those relationships as well. And I think that with the future of this program, I went through TIPS 10 years ago, and I couldn't honestly tell you a single thing that I learned.
I went through a really, really long time ago when I first came to the district. But you're right. It was so much information. Yeah. And then I took my binder and I put it on my shelf in my classroom. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that is changing as well, is trying to make it online and available. Mm-hmm. So right now, everything that used to be in the TIPS binder is available online. And now with the course being online, they can access that course and those course materials, after this time.
After the fact,
after the fact. But yet there still needs to be that personal connection. Yeah. Again,
I agree.
Relationships.
I agree.
Comes back to it.
So this probably goes into, relationships will be one of your answers probably. So I'm just guessing a little bit going ahead. But because we talked about all of this information at you at once in induction, if you could narrow that down, and this might be tricky, to 3 things only and say, if you didn't listen to a word we said, the typical student answer from a teacher, what would be the 3 things that you would say, these are the foundational elements that you really need to pour into in order to be a stronger educator? What would those 3 things be?
Number 1, build relationships.
Yes, I got a point.
And it is key, because if they have those relationships in place, many of the behaviors disappear. So building relationships. I think the second thing would be, if you have the classroom management in place, then you can soar in your lessons and try many
you
different
can add
things.
those, elements of creativity and that sort of thing.
Yes. And I think the third thing that I want them to take away is to love their kids, to love their students. Because so many of our students, when they come to school, that's the love that they get.
Right.
And, so if you can love your students right where they're at, and let them grow before your eyes, there's nothing better. So I think those would be my 3 takeaways for, a new teacher coming in for tips.
I love it. Those are 3 answers that I would definitely stand by, and through experience. It probably took me a lot longer. So for those who are listening to this, I would say write those down on sticky notes and put them in your car, on your classroom door, on your classroom desk, because some of the individuals who've been in teaching for a little while, that probably took them a while to figure out. I know it did for myself, and to hold on tightly to that, because it's not that it makes teaching easier. But there's something magical about when there's a cohesiveness to those 3 things.
Yes. And also watching the student change before your eyes because of the love and the care that you show them.
Yeah.
And love is not physical. It's emotional. It's verbal. It's in your actions in your classroom. And so, you're going to see your kids change. I mean, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I do miss from the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that flows into a teacher as well. When your students feel that way, people are going to notice, and then you begin to build confidence as a new teacher. And when that confidence is established, you're less likely to say, I'm done, I'm quitting, I'm leaving. Because now you have that solid attachment with your students, or you have that investment poured into your community on your school campus. And so ultimately, I love that they all kind of really flow together, and they're all vital. All right, so we ask kind of the same question for every episode. This is our question. If you could pick one area in education to spark change and really ignite a shift in behavior and mindsets for especially new teachers, what would that be? So I want to ignite
a growth mindset in educators.
Why is that so important to you?
It's very important, because if we have a growth mindset for ourselves, we're going to have a growth mindset for our students.
Yes.
And that totally changes when a student makes a mistake on a paper. It doesn't become a fail. It becomes a first attempt in learning.
To understand.
And that we learn from our mistakes.
Yes.
And that's how we grow and change as teachers, as students. So if the growth mindset, if that could just in every educator, if that could just blossom, it would be amazing.
And quickly, early on in their profession, rather than later, because of the fact that with these new teachers, we kind of expect them to learn all of these things all at once and be successful at it. I think we're one of the very few professions that are like, here it is, let's go, you're good to go. And then we're kind of growing along the way. But having that perseverance, having that growth mindset, like what you said with experienced teachers who already have the growth mindset to remind you when times get hard, to remind you and bring you back to reality of it's okay to feel this way.
Yeah, you're not alone.
We really need to be there for our students. We really need to understand that this is all a part of it.
Yes.
Right? So that they do stay the following year. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we want them to stay, and that the longer that they stay and the longer that they carry this growth mindset with them, the more that confidence builds, the more that success grows. And I think that is the end goal. So
definitely, I agree.
Yeah. Well, we are so thankful to have you, Andrea. We appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a wonderful experience.
Good. And we are excited to team up with you even more to support new teachers and be there also with our experienced teachers on this journey to kind of help our county grow, help these schools grow, and understanding on how to provide that support and how to encourage one another. So
Definitely.
Are you fired up? You can hear more from teachers like this by joining in teacher engagement events. You won't want to miss out on monthly virtual new teacher seminars, as well as major events like EdCamp and Emerge Symposium. Check out all of our upcoming events by following Teacher Engagement on social media at Teach Engage PCPS or visiting the Teacher Engagement page on the Hub.
Thanks for joining us. You can subscribe to the Ignite Project on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, or watch online at the Polk County Public Schools YouTube channel. To learn more about the Ignite Project and other Polk County Public School podcasts, go to polkschoolsfl.com/podcasts.